So my first question for you is, as we digitize our world with business, the value chains and all the processes are changing, there's a new value equation model around digital business. What's your view on the digital business value creation equation?
Sure. John, thank you for having me here today, and Dean as well. Thank you for having me. So I think that automation in combination with cognitive computing, AI, machine learning, is really going to revolutionize the way we work, the way we interact, and it's going to create new experiences for people. Experiences that we don't even know that exist in the future. They're going to be real value, and that value is not just about cost take-up. That value is going to be around innovation. That value is going to be around the combination of blockchain, machine learning, ubiquitous computing, and I think that this is going to create new industries, new business models that we could take really advantage of in many different industries.
One of the cool things that's happening that I like in the computer science and in our society in general now is you're seeing cloud computing, which has been around for a while, getting full steam ahead, big data industry evolving very rapidly, and what's kind of pulling them together in this gravity is machine learning, data, cognitive, Internet of Things, and AI is kind of the overarching sizzle, if you will. So the sci-fi aspect of AI, everyone can relate to some sort of mental image of AI, robots taking over the world to automated things just to make us smarter, augmented reality, whatnot. But the Internet of Things and data science that's connecting the power of the cloud with data is changing the game. So one little change in a value equation in a company could change their business model.
Absolutely.
How do you rationalize that with your customers? Hey, full steam ahead or slow down? It depends. What's your perspective on that?
So it's interesting you mentioned about science fiction, right? Because science fiction inspired robots and automation for centuries now. But the reality today is that we are already using automation. It's been used ubiquitously across production lines, manufacturing, logistics. So we've started this journey already for many, many years. I think quite rightfully, like you described in the cloud world, what we're seeing now in automation, you're combining artificial intelligence, you're combining cognitive computing. And what that will do is it will create new value for companies out there, right? That new value is going to be about creating new industries, creating new data. And in the IoT space, it's going to create a new level of intelligence for us that's going to really change the experience that we could deliver.
So, I've said this before, the greatest chess player in the world is not a machine, it's not a supercomputer, it's a combination of humans and computers. And so to the point, we were talking off camera, machines have always replaced humans. It's now cognitive functions are being augmented. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like the scarce resources, the creativity to combine innovations. For decades, we've marched to the cadence of Moore's Law.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. The innovation's not coming from Moore's Law anymore. Whether or not it's tapering, we can argue, let's assume it is.
Reinvention. Yeah.
So where's the innovation coming from? Clearly the innovation curve's not slowing down.
Yeah.
So what's IBM's point of view on that innovation and where it comes from?
So you started by talking about robots and machines and how it's kind of changing jobs and let's say taking over jobs. The reality is that only a small percentage of work, 5 to 10%, will be fully automated in the future. Because we've seen this throughout history. Technology advances in the last 20 years has created new professions. 25% of the work type and profession in the last 20 years are new type of work. John, you were mentioning about the ATM machine just a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
The ATM machine actually is creating new economy.
It was supposed to kill the teller.
Yeah.
Kind of did, but they created more jobs because more branches are opening up.
Exactly, more branches and new ways of interacting and so on. Now you have mobile apps, but actually you have to develop applications which you never had to do in the past before. And exactly the same with automation, we're going to have, and robotics and Internet of Things, combine them together will create a new economy. And the value of that economy is going to be in a couple of areas. One, I think one of the fundamental changes is that our work type, the type of work we do, is going to be automated. About 30% of our work type is going to be automated in certain industries. Industries which are highly task-orientated, highly manual-orientated, highly data-orientated. They will change, that's the reality of it. But that's also going to create a new type of work, a new profession, and people will be upskilling to that. But our prediction is that in the next few years, we're going to see between 1 to 1.5% GDP increase as a result of cognitive computing and AI.
Incremental.
Incremental,
Yep.
incremental. So yes, there'll be some changes of jobs, changes in profession, but incremental, there'll be increase, and that for the aging population issue that we know very well is going to really help to boost a lot of economy out there.
And that scares people too, this whole notion of job loss, and again, when we were talking about before camera, it's not so much controversial, it's more education, both educating people on what the narrative is of the future scenario,
Exactly.
but also education for people to get the new skills. I mean, the stat after the stat, but it's high percentage of jobs aren't even created yet. So, cross-disciplinary education in higher ed's changing, but the skills gap is a huge issue. So
Absolutely.
how do you talk to that point? Because certainly that's an area we heard on stage today, Mark Benioff and Ginny Rometty talking about having a societal impact and having a mission. Education is a big one. What's your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, so I think it starts right from the way we teach. Because you can't necessarily always teach the future, but what you can do is you could prepare for the future. So we need to start teaching our children, to our graduates who start in our companies with new skills around creativity, right? High emotional intelligence. I believe that a robot is never going to be able to manage emotional intelligence, right? So how do we do is more emotional intelligence? How do we provide more discipline around education? How do we provide them right
Critical
skills?
thinking?
Political thinking, absolutely, and science. But also these artificial intelligence is going to aid human being. It's going to help us to discover new remedies for problems that we have today in our society, problems that we have in healthcare, problems that we have in political systems, which we are seeing now, and hopefully provide more confidence in our system because of the data and intelligence that we
Okay, so now I got to throw in the augmented reality, because AI is obviously kind of a concept people are getting. It's not clear yet what that is. What really is AI? Well, that chapter will be written certainly as it evolves. But augmented reality is happening. So IoT, you can have goggles on that look at meters and get all new data if that's not even there. You can do automation around getting predictive analytics around industrial IoT, these kinds of things. You're seeing consumer devices having augmented reality.
Yeah.
That's here, right? That's here and now. So how do you advise your clients and customers, the big IBM customers you service, to prepare for augmented reality? Because is there a playbook? Are they nodding their heads? Are they going, oh, face palm? I mean, what's happening?
Yeah, so augmented reality is here, and it's here to stay. The difference between augmented reality now, and if you looked at, let's say 5 years ago when we had Google Glasses, one was hype versus reality. One was a use case now where actually it's transformational, and it's having real impact and ROI, like the example you gave around manufacturing, or how you use it in logistics, when you are looking at airlines and how you look at training people. Now you could train people using augmented reality and speed the level of adoption required, at the time required to skill people. And then in the past, we never had that. Is there a playbook? I don't think there is a playbook, John, because I think the use cases are so diverse.
Yeah.
But I think what we really need to do is go back to the fundamental of consulting. What do we look for in business problem solving? We look for problems, we analyze that problem through design thinking or whatever methodology we use. We look at what the impact is. Is it speed, quality, and cost? And if we could answer these questions, speed, quality, and cost, and the human impact onto it, those are the factors that are going to determine what are the use case of augmented reality that's going to really transform and have impact in industries.
And I find it interesting too, you mentioned that the old way of doing things, you're not going to be there, but the old way of doing software was general purpose computing and software. Buy a shrink-wrapped package, load it, does some function. Now the composability of APIs and microservices allow for common building blocks.
Yeah.
So now essentially every solution is custom.
Yes.
So you have a diverse use case. Remember, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah. So that's how it is in the enterprise. So that's a reality. So with that as kind of a backdrop, what are some of the cool things that you're working on now that you could point to and say, these are examples of the kinds of journeys customers are going through? It could be a crazy idea that's implemented or a great idea. Share a story about something that highlights some of this new way of building apps, new way of being agile, new way of discovering value creation.
Sure. So you're absolutely right. We're moving into a world of consumable services, if I could describe it that way. API services, microservices, pulling data from different sources, augmenting your data source, having functions that you get from your competitors even, to augment the capability you want and create new business processes. And I think we'll see more and more of this. And I was speaking to a bank even last week in Abu Dhabi where they're saying, what's the future of a bank? Do I need a processing bank? Do I need a back office anymore? Do I need a branch? Can I not just be a virtual bank? Can I not just connect to a fintech to provide my services and I have the customer and own the customer? So I think there's an advancement in terms of thinking now, right? And that thinking is possible because the possibilities are endless. And we have never seen more access to technology at relatively low cost even than ever before. And also open source is making it possible, I think. Open source is giving power to the people and companies to have world-class technology, combined with IBM technology to provide real great value.
So, go ahead, please, carry on.
And just in terms of use cases, another example is that I've recently seen a use case around know your customer. One example was opening up accounts for high worth customers could take months and months to make sure the security checks and so. You may have an account, but in terms of fully transacting, it takes months. Now using machine learning, you go and search over 1 million databases, look for 1 million different patterns, and make a recommendation to your wealth advisor to see what kind of customer you're going to be. By analyzing movies, watching 4 movies that you watched and that you love, we could predict by 95% what are all the movies that you're going to love in the rest of your life. Yeah. Those are the use cases I've seen. I just find it fascinating.
That's what Netflix is doing. They're getting all the data from me.
Yes, yeah.
And arbitraging it out the back door.
Recommended books, I mean, it's getting more
I want to
and more
own my
effective.
data. That's what Ginny was saying on stage. We should own our data.
Yeah, I mean, and there's certainly consumers out there who want to own the data, and I think there's going to be this shift where you could have digital identity in the future where you own the data and you can start trading your data. So instead of just giving your data, you can start monetizing your own data and saying what kind of information do you want, what kind of experiences do you want, how do you want to trade, who do you want to trade with? Do you want to share the data with your family, with your friends, with your business partner, and you become the owner of data, and that certainly is an area that we're seeing and moving to, but also it's going to help with the identity. Your identity will be known only to you, not to service providers.
I think you're onto something, and one of the things we were just talking about, Don Tapscott, was with blockchain, the Blockchain Revolution, his new book, is when you get the transactional cost of business reduced, you mentioned that virtual bank, makes total sense. Why should I spend all this money to have a company? I can reduce my transactional cost of doing business and still provide great value.
Well, I don't know, I mean, you talk about the future's hard to predict sometimes, but the bank in Abu Dhabi, right? I mean, you see banks, you talk to them all the time, reimagining the banking experience, but not necessarily eliminating the physical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so, to me it's fascinating. Like the list of things that machines can't do that humans can changes seemingly every year, whether it's climbing stairs or even autonomous vehicles 5 years ago, nobody thought was. I was at an IBM conference not that long ago, 5 years ago, they said it's 25 years before you'll see that, and then wow, just overnight. So
self-driving cars is another one prediction.
Yeah, so do your clients, how much do they try to skate to the puck, which seems to be a harder endeavor versus saying, okay, we can apply this today and save money or tap a new business opportunity? So
you made some great points here. The first point I'd like to just elaborate a little bit more, which you mentioned about the physical and the digital, right? Which you might, and your example was the branch. What's the role of a branch if you have a fully digital bank in the future, right? We still need a branch. And why do you need a branch? Because in the branch is going to be different in the future.